everyone, this is Michael from NTS 4K. I'm here to do a review of the Samsung Z Fold 5. Pretty excited to get this review out there. I'm not gonna go super in depth on anything crazy. Really what this review is gonna be focused on is more of some of my likes of using it, some of my dislikes, some of the stuff that's kind of like just meh, you know? It's not great, it's not terrible. And then on top of that, I'm gonna go through some of the things I miss from my iPhone 14 Pro Max, and then some of the things I miss from the Fold if I were to stick with my iPhone 14 Pro Max. So kind of getting more of just a comparison between, you know, iPhone that doesn't do anything super crazy like fold and unfold, and a Samsung phone, and seeing what those features look like, and you know, some of the benefits that each of them have. Here we go. All right, so first up for the likes on the Z Fold 5, man, the folding phone is so cool. Like, it's just weird to just like unfold a phone, and it's fun. Like, since I got it, I've shown it to like every single person I've met. Like, look, I have a folding phone, because it's so weird to just see it like do a crease like that, and then it's, you know, it's crazy. And the Z Fold 5, like, I've followed the Fold since the beginning, but especially, you know, using the 5, the most refined version that's currently out right now for the Samsung Z Fold, you know, line. Oh, it's just so sweet. So for my likes, the first thing on my like list is just, it's a folding phone. Apple, make one of these. This is so cool. Like, oh man. Another thing that that I really like about it is the way the inner camera works, right? So there's a camera lens on the inside, but it's really cool because it's a hole punch lens for like face unlock and stuff. But then when you're actually viewing content, there's pixels that are overlaid over it that kind of cover up that hole. And to be honest with you, you literally can't see it unless you're looking for it. Like, if you're watching a movie or anything else or gaming, it's not even there. It's really cool tech. I think it's really sweet because like a notch has never really bothered me that much, but having the ability to like still have the camera lens there and just have it completely invisible, or essentially completely invisible when you're using it, so cool. I love that. Another thing that I love about this phone, the screen on the inside is like, I feel like it's the perfect size. It's not too tall, it's not too wide. Honestly, the keyboard was easy for me to type on. The content looks amazing. You know, everything about it, it's a really cool phone. And I think a lot of the apps that I used resized like perfectly. Like Clash of Clans, I'm a huge Clash of Clans player. I love Clash of Clans, played it for like 10 years. But or however long it's been out. On the Fold, it just, boom, you open it, boom, it's full screen. I mean, it's like literally like full screen. It's so sweet. So everything seemed to really size really well on it, especially movies and TV shows and YouTube and just anything you want to watch full screen. It's a really great experience on the inside screen. I'd say they pretty much knocked it out of the park for the size of the inside screen. Another thing that I really like, the crease on the inside is still visible, but it's basically not visible. So whenever you're watching any content, playing a game, doing essentially anything, you never notice it. You have to like look at the phone at a certain angle and like catch the light to really see the crease. But I mean, what person looks at their phone like this, right? Like, that's not a normal angle. You look dead on, can't see a crease. It's great. You can feel it, but outside of a couple video apps that put the play and pause button right in the very center of the screen, you never even really touch it. Like, I play Rocket League Sideswipe on here, right? And so I'm just holding the phone and playing, but you don't even like, you never go up past halfway generally. So you just don't even notice that the crease is there. So I think they've done an incredible job reinforcing the crease to make it almost non-existent or look non-existent, to the point where it doesn't bother me at all that it's there. So that was something that I definitely noticed I really liked, is how they've improved on that over the last couple of years. I would say the camera and the camera zoom is phenomenal. It was kind of crazy because I took my first photo and I was kind of like, wow, that doesn't look very good, because it's a different, you know, like engine than iPhone and other phones I've used. Because you take the picture and it's less like, Samsung's makes theirs a little bit brighter. iPhone, I think, makes theirs a little bit more blue. Like, there's kind of like different things that they do to adjust the image. And I'm used to iPhone because I've used it for years. And at first I was like, man, that's not that good. That's kind of blurry, whatever. And then I kind of realized, like, one, I'm looking at it blown up on a bigger screen, so it's obviously going to look a little bit blurrier because it's on a bigger screen. But two was, I realized if you switch to the 30x like zoom, it's crazy. Like, I'm just like sniping pictures where you're like, you go to take a picture and you're like, it actually has a centering thing where it'll show you a small window on the camera that shows like where you are on like a larger, like a backed out zoom. It's so wild. I'll put it in the video so you guys can see, but it's really insane being able to like zoom in and see exactly where you are in the zoom finder and then take a picture. But then when you take it, like when you're looking at it through the camera lens, it's like, oh, that looks really blurry. And then you take it and you look at the picture and it is crystal clear. Like they do some freaking magic to make the 30X thing like crystal clear after you take the photo. It's wild. That's a really cool experience. My iPhone can't do anything like that. If I even zoom in past 3X on my phone, I'm like, ugh, that looks terrible on my 14 Pro Max. So anyway, that's something that Samsung has going for it. That's really cool. I mean, overall, I still like my iPhone just because it's like 0.5, 1, 2, or 3, and that's it. Like it's just how I zoom. And the Android one's a little bit different, and it's got a lot more. It's not just swipe to switch between video and photos. It's got a lot of other things, but I don't know. I think they're pretty much on par with each other. They're both great cameras and they both have features the other one doesn't have. I think the iPhone does better with video. The Samsung obviously does better with, long distance photos. So just something I noticed. The inner keyboard on this is actually really great. I love typing on the inner keyboard. The way that they actually like arrange the keyboard is really cool because when you want to type, and I'll show you like my notes here, you can kind of see like it literally splits the keyboard in half. So even when you're typing, you're not interacting with the crease. You literally can just like one hand on each side of the keyboard and just start typing. And it's a very enjoyable experience. Honestly, there's some things I like about the keyboard just in general, not even the fact that it folds, but just that in general, the iPhone doesn't have. Like if you copy something to paste it somewhere, it just shows in the preview text bar at the top. You can just click it to paste it. So you don't on an iPhone, you have to like select it, copy, tap somewhere else, and then tap again, and then tap paste, and then it pastes it. On Samsung, you just select it, copy, click somewhere, and then click the button on the preview window to paste it. That's a great experience. And then on top of that, obviously on Samsung keyboards, and probably just because the Fold has a bigger screen, you can see there's a lot of other options there at the top of the keyboard that give you just kind of a lot more information. Your clipboard's right there. You can see your clipboard history. You have your emotes. You have your keyboard size. You can mess with your keyboard size. There's dictation. There's settings. There's a settings button on the keyboard in the keyboard. Like that's crazy. So yeah, some things there I definitely wish the iPhone would maybe add just to have a little bit extra customization. But overall, again, iPhone and Android pretty much neck and neck on the keyboard. I just think the Fold does a really good job splitting the keyboard to make it super easy to type while open. I did get a couple other people's feedback on it, and they were kind of saying it was really weird to type on while open, but I think that was more of a disconnect from an iPhone user used to using a small phone, switching to a Samsung phone that has a split keyboard. I use a split keyboard for work. It's like one of the ergonomic ones where it's twisted to the side, so you kind of type more like this, and I'm used to the letters being split, and they're split the exact same way on the keyboard here. So it's pretty easy for me to just be able to type on a split keyboard like that and know which letters are on which side. So definitely a great experience with the keyboard. Games are great on the inner screen. They're not as good on the outside screen. It's kind of like a meh experience because the outside screen is like ridiculously small. Like I think the outside screen is actually too small, to be honest with you, but I think that kind of just coincides with the fact that the inner screen is the perfect size, and the only way to get the outer screen, the inner screen to the right size was to make the outer screen weird. I don't know if there's any way around that. I just never use it closed. I always use it open, but I'm looking for the bigger screen. Like that's what I want. So anyway, games and stuff are great on the inside screen. Like I said, I played Rocket League Sideswipe. I've been playing like Clash of Clans, and it's so weird because it's like using an iPad mini, but then you just slap it closed and now it's like a phone, and it's just so cool. So yeah, that's a great experience. What else? I haven't noticed any wear or tear issues on the inner screen. I know sometimes like a lot of videos would be like, the screen, it's very not durable. Your nail can scratch it, whatever. I don't know if they did anything different on the Z Fold 5. Like I said, this isn't that kind of review. I'm not looking at a hardware review of it. But for overall durability, like I can't see any marks on the screen. The inner screen stays pretty clean. I haven't had any damage with it, any issues with like, pushing too hard or anything. I mean, it feels like a screen. It feels just like the outer screen. I'm very happy with that. The swipe in menu from the side of the phone, I love that. The last Samsung phone I used was the Galaxy Note Edge. That was back when they first started doing the corners, thing. And the Edge was like a Note, but the right side of it, the screen had a waterfall curve, and it had a whole separate menu that you could schedule and like switch between and load apps on there. And it was really cool. They kind of stopped supporting it in the middle of my using it. Like they were like, yes, there's a store coming soon, and the store never came, and that was kind of a bummer. And then I switched to iPhone and was like, wow, this is better. Back then, obviously, because that was back when Samsung still had removable batteries, all that stuff. There was like, definitely a little bit of a gap. But anyway, The side menu on here is really nice. Like when you're looking at the phone, I like that you can just swipe in and just you have your menu right there with your, you know, if you want to go see all apps, there's a button to see all your apps. If you want to, you know, quick load one of the apps you were just looking at, or if you want, like, you can rearrange your favorites, you can set pictures to show there. They do have like a settings option. Actually, if you swipe in, there's literally a little pen to edit, and you can go in and customize exactly what shows in that little side menu. So I like that side menu. I think it's a nice little, like, it's a nice addition to a big screen. It doesn't take up any extra space, but gives you a little bit more versatility in what you want to do. It helps you get to your apps faster, which is kind of the goal. So I really like that. One thing I did want to say, the phone has several apps that do really cool adjustments. So sorry, I'm looking at my notes over here. Like one of the things that I really liked was, and I liked it initially, and then I ended up kind of being like, you know, whatever. When you're watching YouTube, if you turn the phone sideways, you can full screen it, and then you can see the whole screen on the entire screen. And then if you fold the screen in half, it basically makes whatever half is the top half of the fold on the inside show the video, and the bottom half show your pause and play, and then you can X out of that to like see comments on the bottom half. But it kicks in at an angle that's odd. The angle that it kicks in at is like an angle where you can't see the top screen and the bottom screen at the same time. Like even if you like had it sitting on a desk, I'm not entirely sure that it would be usable. I personally would never use it that way, because I'm either here for the big screen, or I'm watching YouTube on a small screen while I'm doing something else. So that was something that I don't know. It was a cool feature at first. I was like, wow, that's so awesome. And then I realized, like, why would I do that? And especially like if you are in full screen and then you just tap a button, it makes it a little bit smaller, but it gives you like the normal desktop YouTube experience. So you have like recommended videos on the right, the little video window there on the left, and then you have the comments and stuff below that. And that was like perfect. Like, why would you ever want anything different? So that was something I just noticed. I did love the picture-in-picture too, being able to swipe up and then just like boom, or like picture-in-picture you can set to any size, right? So like I'm like, you know what, I want to keep watching Star Trek Discovery, right? Like I'm rewatching that, trying to get through and caught up. And so like I'm watching it, and then it's like, oh, I get a text message. So I'd be like, I'd make it bigger, and you can make it any size. Like you could make it huge or make it small, and then just go in and like send your text message and just tap in back your full screen again. That was a really great experience. The picture-in-picture on here is great. iPhone only has two settings, small and large. Small, you literally can't see the screen. The buttons are the entire size of the screen if you try to pause it. And then large is like covers like the whole top of the phone. It just, there's no medium, there's no middle. You can't like resize or whatever. It's just whatever size it is. And I hate that because on Mac they can resize to any size, but apparently on iPhone they can't. So anyway, that was something I loved about the Fold. I love the picture-in-picture. I thought that was great. One thing I did notice, so on iPhone, and this is something I was able to replicate on Android too. So on iPhone, when you're watching picture-in-picture, you can like flick the video off the screen, and then it sits on the side menu where you can see like a tiny little arrow, tiny little tab that's like, hey, you have a video playing over here. You can grab it whenever you're done, and you just like flick it back on the screen, and then it's there. It's like a little tiny pull tab. And that was a really great addition when Apple did that. And Samsung also did that on the Fold when you're watching video, picture-in-picture, like, you know, Google, whoever made that feature. When you're watching picture-in-picture, you can flick it off to the side. It does stick out more than the iPhone does, like more than I'd like. I'd say it sticks out like maybe like 1/4 of an inch into the screen, which I just think is too much to tell you like, hey, the video is playing over here. Like I don't need to see this giant tab sticking out. But one thing I did notice was like, if I'm watching Star Trek Discovery on Paramount Plus, if I flick it over, it keeps playing. But if I'm watching YouTube and I flick it over, it pauses. And then as soon as I flick it back on screen, it plays again. So it's just weirdly non-consistent. And then I tried to do the same thing on my iPhone, and on YouTube, if I flick off to the side window on YouTube, it just keeps playing. It doesn't pause it. And all my other shows on iPhone, they all consistently will just keep playing unless I pause it and then flick it off screen. So it was just kind of odd that some apps would self-pause and some wouldn't. I'm sure that's probably a YouTube content, you know, management thing, but I thought that was kind of odd. So that was just something I wanted to mention. But overall, the picture-in-picture was astoundingly good, and I loved being able to make it basically the whole size of the top half of the phone if I wanted while I was doing other things. So that was really great. One of the last likes that I wanted to mention was notifications. So I'm an iPhone user. Some iPhone users hate Apple notifications, like how they can handle notifications on iOS. Some people love them. I hadn't used Androids recently. Like I said, my last phone was a Note Edge like 7 years ago or something crazy. So I hadn't used them in a while, and I found the notifications to be very useful and relaxing, because you tend to get a lot of junk notifications on iPhone, enough that a lot of people complain that their notification center is like overloaded on iPhone, and I found that to be the case myself. But if you go into notifications on iPhone, like the notifications and settings, you can just turn them off, and then you don't get badges, like the little numbers on the notifications. You don't get anything. You can just zilch, don't show me these. So every time I open any app, unless I'm in love with this app, I do not turn on notifications. So my notification center on iPhone is usually pretty clean. But like if you do like Apple News or anything, then you get like a bunch at once a lot of times. Like I'll get like 5 or 6 a day or more, and that gets overloading. On the Samsung phone, I thought it really did a really good job limiting the notifications to like things you really want to see. Like right now when I'm looking, I got the weather, I got Google Play Store to clean up my device anytime, to remove unused apps. I have the Galaxy Store. I have an update from the Galaxy, like a Galaxy Store app. I have a subscriber. Like I'm looking through, and it is cool to be able to see, all those right there at the top. And then there's always a button to clear. On the iPhone, sometimes it's just an X, and you don't know, like, am I clearing just the stack? Am I clearing all my notifications? Sometimes the X isn't there depending on if you've tapped into one. So it's a little bit inconsistent, but the notification experience on the Samsung Fold was incredible. I'm imagining it's just very similar to most Samsung phones and Android phones these days, but it was nice. And I thought they did a really good job, just like even looking at like the layout for, how the Wi-Fi and all the buttons are there. And then the fact that you can just like expand down and see Quick Share, Dex, Smart View, Link to Windows, Screen Recorder, Mobile Data, iComfort Shield, Dark Mode, like, and then you can add or remove more. Like that's really nice. And it's a cool way to do it, because on Apple's, it's just kind of like, is this in there? Yes or no? If it's in there, always show it. So then when you swipe down from the top right on your 14 Pro and you're viewing your control center, there's like way too many things in there. But also, like, sometimes that's the only way to access it. Like, to my knowledge, the only way to turn on screen recording is to literally put it in notification center or in control center. But I don't always want it in control center. Like I only want to use it sometimes, like if I'm shooting a video where I need to record screens. So anyway, the notification center, control center combo that Samsung has, especially on the Fold and just Android in general, is an incredible experience. I just loved everything about it. It's been really nice. So coming from an iPhone user, I kind of prefer theirs at this point, which is surprising. So that's all the likes I had for the phone. There's some other ones I'm going to mention in a little bit, more like things that I'd miss about the phone. But again, just to emphasize, look at that screen. It's huge. Like, this is the best. It's so cool. I love watching, like, a phone for me is a media consumption device generally. Like, I'm watching YouTube while my kids are using the TV. Or the TV's off and they're playing. I'm watching YouTube, I'm watching Netflix, Great British Baking Show, whatever I want to watch. Having a screen this big is stinking awesome. And I was like walking on the treadmill last night because I went over my ketosis goal a little bit, had some chips with dinner, and I was like, I got to burn these off. And I was walking on the treadmill, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to use my Fold to do this. So I paired my XM4, my Sony XM4 headphones, and I was like listening to Discovery. I was watching Star Trek Discovery and watching it on here. And I was like, this is so nice. Like on the treadmill, like if I was using my iPhone, it'd just be this little, phone. And every step I take, I'm like, I can barely see the screen. It's kind of small. And it's on a 14 Pro Max. Like it's not a small phone. But then you got the Fold, and I feel like I'm watching it on my tablet. Like I set my wife's like iPad Pro there. Like it's really nice. I love that. So that's definitely like my favorite thing is the Fold is just, the inside screen is a blast. It's incredible. I love it so much. All right, and now for some dislikes. So I had a couple things I did not like on the Fold 5, the Z Fold 5, and some of them I really didn't like. So first one I'm gonna go with, one I really didn't like. Netflix doesn't work on here. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. I used to work in a service desk as an IT technician, so I'm usually pretty good at troubleshooting stuff, but I never got Netflix to launch on this phone, and I really wanted to watch Great British Baking Show while I was on the treadmill the other day, and I just couldn't do it. The app was pre-installed on the out-of-box on the phone, and went to launch it, didn't work. Uninstalled the app, went to the Play Store, reinstalled it, didn't work. Restarted the phone, uninstalled it, restarted the phone, reinstalled it, Still didn't work. And every time it just sits there on the Netflix logo for like 20, 30 seconds, and then it just says like failed to connect to Netflix services. So I don't know what that's about. I got this phone on the, I want to say the 13th or 14th, so I've been using it for a little bit. And there was an update that went out on the 14th for Netflix. So I don't know if that update broke it on Android or Samsung devices. I kept checking for updates. There was none that I could install, but it was frustrating that an app just straight up wouldn't work on the phone. Like, that seems odd to me. We're open on Netflix just fine. The phone was on the Wi-Fi in the house. My phone was on the Wi-Fi and worked on my iPhone. I don't know. So that was something I really didn't like. It was just, it's weirdly odd that an app would just not work on this phone. So don't think it was user error. Who knows? Maybe it was, but that was just something that frustrated me. Another thing that I think I really disliked, so I was talking earlier about how I really loved the selfie camera being completely hidden, you know, behind the pixels of the screen when it's open, like when you're actually in the fold part. Gosh dang, the quality on the inner selfie camera is awful. Like, I would rather, instead of taking a picture with that, I'd rather go upstairs and get my kids' little camera thing I bought them off Amazon for $20 and take a picture with that than take a picture with this. Like, it is bad. I don't know why it's that bad. Maybe it's the pixels covering it, whatever. When you're looking at it, like when you're taking the picture, it looks horrendous. But then when you take the picture, it kind of fixes it up a little bit, you know, kind of like what I was talking about where you're taking a 30x zoom photo. The picture you end up with is better than what you're looking at on the screen when you're taking it. But it's bad. It was shockingly bad. So I don't know why that is. I don't understand. I'm on the latest updates and everything for it, and that was just something where I was like, ugh. So if you're going to use the inner camera, I'm sorry for your loss. Use the outer camera. It's amazing. Inner camera, not great. Another thing that I really liked on this phone was, another thing I didn't like on this phone, the gesture-based navigation is weird. So, and maybe this is just like because I'm mostly an iPhone user, right? But iPhone, I feel like, locked it down. Like, they came out with the iPhone 10 and they're like, there's a bar at the bottom of the screen, swipe up and hold. There's all the apps you recently used. There's your app switcher. Swipe up once and you're home. Swipe left and right, switch between apps. That's it. It could not be more simple. And I know Android for a long time, they had like one button for the app switcher, one button to go home, and then one button to like, you know, go back, whatever. So this Fold, when you get it stock, the Samsung Fold has a back button. It has the normal buttons, but they're on one side of the screen. They're in the bottom right corner of the screen. So you have three buttons there. You have one for app switcher, one for go to home, and one to go back. I don't like that. I don't like any part of my screen being wasted by buttons when it can just be a bar at the bottom of the screen that I never really notice, and that fades in and out as I need it. So I went into the navigation settings and I turned it off. I switched back to the one bar, you know, configuration that I'm used to, that I love. And I was like, oh, this is so much better. Like, I love this. This is a great experience. Then I got stuck in an app and I couldn't go anywhere. I was trying to set a theme because I was messing around with themes in here, and I was trying to set a theme and I couldn't get out of it. Like, I clicked on something and I couldn't go back. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I literally had to close the app and reopen it to go back to the previous page in that menu. And I was like, so you literally can't use one bar navigation on this phone. And I don't know if that's because Samsung's like UI, I don't know what it is. That was frustrating because, like, as an iPhone user, there's no back button, right? Or there's no back button in the bottom right corner. Every single page you go to has a back button in the top left corner, as well as, generally speaking, you could just swipe from the very left of the screen to the right, and then you're just at the previous window wherever you were. But for some reason on this one, it would get stuck. So what I did was I switched to, you can see here, I switched to the 3-bar layout. It's still 3 buttons, but it's 3 bars. So you have one to go back, or to look at your app switcher, one to go back to home, and then one just to go back. And that was what ended up working for me. So if you do end up getting a Fold, if you're like me and you like the gesture-based controls for the navigation menu, I would switch to the 3-bar setting, because that one definitely worked for me and made it a much better experience. One side effect I noticed, like if you full screen a video in YouTube, it would just full screen and everything looked great. And there was nothing at the bottom. There were no bars. The bars would fade out. And then if you touched the bottom, they would show up to like jump around, whatever. But when I was watching Paramount Plus and Discovery, Star Trek Discovery, I noticed that when I was in full screen and sideways, it would show the 3 bars and my app switcher at the bottom the entire time, even in full screen. So I don't know if that's just a Paramount Plus thing, why it would do that, like if it's a special setting on Android, what, but it was weird because I was in like Star Trek Discovery is a pretty dark show, right? Like literally the lighting is dim, it's dark show. So I'd turn the brightness up a lot to be able to see, especially when like on a treadmill, you know, like working out, I want to see it easily. So I'd like crank the brightness up and the bottom menu was like blindingly bright, but the show was not. It was still dark and it was really annoying. So that's just something I noticed. Maybe somebody else knows how to fix that who's more fluent with Android than I am. You know, like I said, I haven't used it in a while. I'm usually a pretty quick learner, but that was something that was just like, ugh. So if you guys have a Fold, or if you use the 3-bar navigation, or, you know, whatever, you have a fix for that issue I'm describing, you know, please let me know. Post it in the comments, because yeah, that bothered the heck out of me. So that was something I really didn't like. Another thing I didn't really love, the auto brightness on it's terrible out of the box. Obviously, you can go in and adjust this. I feel like on iPhone, the auto brightness is pretty good. Like on an iPhone, when you have auto brightness set up, you actually can just, it's generally really good. It keeps it generally pretty low. But then as soon as you go outside, as soon as there's any sunlight, it's like, oh, you want max brightness. And it's like, let's burn that battery life to the ground. Like that's how it generally does it. You know, like on an iPhone, it's like, let's get rid of that battery, you know? And I hate that. Like I wish I could set a brightness setting level where it's like, do not go above 80%. You know, or don't go above 70%. On the Fold, it's the opposite. The Fold's like, we have to conserve every ounce of battery power we have. So like when I was trying to watch, when I first opened, I was like, oh, this is really dim. What's going on with this? And I like looked through and I like turned off auto brightness and was like, oh, so much better. But then it's like, now I have to manually adjust my brightness every time I go anywhere. And that was really annoying. Like right now I'm in a dark basement, so I'll have it like a little bit darker, but then, you know, if I go outside, okay, now I got to swipe down and turn the brightness all the way back up. Like, I just don't understand why the auto brightness is set so ridiculously low. I wish there was a way to say, like, set it for like minimum power, you know, like medium power consumption, and have it be brighter generally all the time. That was something that was just annoying to me because I like my phone screens a little bit brighter. Usually I use my phone screen like a 10% in the morning, and then like 10% brightness when I like in the morning when I'm first waking up, or like, you know, at night when I'm going to bed. But otherwise I have it set to like, you know, 60, 70%, like a good comfortable, like this is bright, but not like really bright. And it was just weird that this one didn't really do auto brightness very well. And another thing was, if you turn on, so it's called adaptive brightness on here, I'm sorry, not auto brightness, but there's another thing that's called extra brightness. Extra brightness, it says increases the maximum brightness, but it uses more battery. So I was like, oh, maybe that's a fix. So I turned that on and then switched to adaptive brightness, and it was instantly like dim the screen. Like I'll show you right here, right? So here's the phone. You can see it's extra brightness. I turn it down. Now it's not as bright. Turn it back on. It's bright again, right? So now I'm going to turn on adaptive brightness, and it's like the screen's barely even on. Like it's on, but like what is going on? Is it an e-reader? I don't understand. So that's something that like that blows my mind. I don't understand who would want their phone to be that dim. I don't know why Samsung does that. Hopefully they fix that in a future thing, but gosh dang, that was annoying. It's just too dim for me. So I have to manually adjust my brightness now, I guess, with this phone, but that's fine. My last dislike is not really that big of a deal, but it was the outer screen's too narrow. I think the outer screen is too narrow to be comfortably used for anything. Like even texting, that keyboard, like it feels like, was it the iPhone 4S? Like when you go back from like when they switched from you know, the face unlock to a Touch ID phone, and you like try to use it, and you're like, this phone is so narrow, it's crazy. Like that's what it feels like. So outer screen, too narrow. I don't really love it. That's why I pretty much use the inner screen like exclusively, just because I don't really love the size of the outer screen. I guess one last little thing related to that on the outer screen, or just the case of the phone, there's you can see the volume button and the power button are like right next to each other. Several times I was watching a show like this and I reached up to turn the volume down and I hit the power button. I might be an idiot, maybe it's me, but I think having the volume button, which doesn't even have like clear, it's not two buttons, like it's the same button that it presses down or presses up, it's the same button. And then having that next to the power button, like that close to the power button, that's too close. I don't like that. It's easy to make mistakes. It bothers me. I wish the volume button was on a different side of the phone. Maybe that's all I could do right now, but that was just a small gripe I had with it. So anyway, that's it for all my dislikes though. And now we'll get on to the meh stuff. For the meh stuff on the Z Fold 5, one of the first things is everything you think would be awesome on the inner screen is awesome, but everything else is not. So what I mean by that is like, you know, some things are amazing to look on the big screen when you're looking at pictures, when you're watching a movie, you know, when you're, you know, using, you know, notes, whatever, having more screen real estate to mess with stuff is really nice. But there's some things that like weren't as good, I think. Like a couple apps I tried, Samsung clearly stretched the aspect ratio of that game to make it fit the full screen. And like your eyes kind of can adjust to that and get used to it. And then you're like, oh, whatever, this is the new normal now, and you're fine. But I noticed that. And then there's some other things like if you're using the settings on this phone, in my opinion, I think the settings is like there's no separating bar between the left half and the right half of the phone. So it's just kind of, it's hard to logically separate in your brain like which thing you're on. Because like obviously right here I can see notifications and I'm on notifications, but like when you're in like a really busy, you know, thing like sound here, it feels like overwhelming being able to scroll. Like, can't really show you, being able to scroll on both sides of the screen at once. It just feels kind of overwhelming. You know, just some of the apps just in full screen were just a little bit weird. The camera was like huge. It felt huge. It's kind of nice, but it's also kind of weird because a bigger screen always makes a picture seem a little bit blurrier. So that was like something that's just odd. But anyway, most of the apps, like any app that you think would look great on a giant screen is great on a giant screen. Paramount Plus, great. Star Trek Discovery looked amazing. Netflix, never got it to work. I would imagine was probably nice. YouTube, really great. I especially love the desktop experience when you're holding it sideways. You get the little video and then your recommendeds on the right and your comments and descriptions on the left. Like that was great. So that was a great thing on there. Another meh thing, I think, so Samsung uses, I know to my knowledge, Samsung uses a different technology to do face unlocks. They use they don't use LiDAR. They don't do the 150 little dots to scan your face and build a 3D map of it. So it just uses a picture. Like it literally just like snapped a picture of me and then just that was it. It seems like it doesn't always get my face, and it also does not get it fast. Like if I open my phone right now and have it scan my face, like literally it's like, go, and now I'm in. If I do it again, it's like, go, and now I'm in. But iPhone, it's just you swipe up and my face is already scanned and it's done. And also the face unlock doesn't work in the dark as well because it's not, it can't see your face, right? Like iPhone uses literal like LiDAR lasers to map your face, so it doesn't matter if it's light or dark out. But this one just seemed, I don't know, the face unlock seemed kind of meh. The fingerprint reader is fine. I'm using a case with my Fold just so I don't break it because it's very small, very thin, very slippery. It felt like the fingerprint scanner is fine. It seems fast enough. I actually kind of miss fingerprint readers. There's been a bunch of times where I've tried to use a finger I didn't have mapped for it because I didn't think I'd ever use that finger to unlock my phone. So that's something to just keep in mind, is you might want to like map multiple fingers to it, and I guess just use it and see which ones trigger for you, or which ones you try to use and don't work, and then you're like, oh yeah, and then go add that one. So that was another meh thing. Another thing that was kind of meh, sound is a little weird. So when you're looking at the phone, your speaker comes from, like if you're looking at it front and center, your speakers are here and here. They're only on the left side of the phone. There are no speakers on the right side of the phone. So if you're watching content like this, it feels odd, like it feels like all the sound's coming from this side of the room and none of it's coming from this side, and it throws you off. And if you're watching it like this, it feels fine, but it doesn't get that loud because they're not forward firing speakers, right? Like on the iPhone, you generally get you get the one from the bottom, and then you get the one from the top, the top ear, I think it's top earpiece, somewhere right around there. So you're getting the dual sound. But on this one, it seemed like even when I held it like this and cupped my hands to get more sound, I wasn't getting as much sound as I wanted. So that was something that was kind of meh. Maybe it's just me, maybe I need to use it louder. Obviously, iPhone speakers are pretty hard to beat generally from any phone. But that was just something I noticed. It seems odd that only one, like the phone, the speakers are only on one half of it. I would have loved to see a speaker on the top and bottom. That would have blown my mind if they did something like that. So that was another meh thing I noticed. There was also the default sleep settings are terrible. Do not use them. It's set to 30 seconds. The phone would fall asleep I'd literally unlock the phone, and then I'd like go to click on an app and the phone would fall asleep. Like it's crazy. I don't, so on iPhone, right, the default's also 30 seconds on iPhone, but iPhone has this feature where it uses the Face ID to look at your face and see where your eyes are looking, and it can tell if your eyes are looking at the screen, it's like, well, you're still using it, so don't dim the screen. So even with the phone on an iPhone set to 30-second like screen lock time, it's 30 seconds of you looking away from the phone, not 30 seconds of you staring at the phone. So on my phone, if I stare at it like this, it doesn't matter if I stare at it for 10 minutes without touching the screen, it's still checking, it's seeing my eyes looking at the screen, and it is going to continue to keep the screen on. But on Samsung's, it does not do that. So I'm like literally reading something and it just like goes to sleep, like while I'm reading it. That was really annoying. I ended up setting it up to, on my iPhone too, I set them both to 2 minutes just so they never time out accidentally on me. But that was something that was just kind of meh. I don't know why out of the box it's set to 30. It should be a minute or something. Maybe it's a security thing. So something that just meh, but it was an easy fix. I went to settings and changed it. So another thing that was kind of meh, the theme options seem weird. I tried to set a theme because I was like, oh, these themes look really cool. Like I want to mess with that. But like when you go into themes, they have like featured in top. All the themes are paid unless you like specifically filter to just see, you know, the ones that aren't paid. But then there's not like a section to see like fold themes. And none of the pictures seem to be sized for a fold. Like if I go right now into themes and I, you know, pull up one of the top ones, like this one right here, right? When I pull it up, that's not a folding phone. That's just a normal phone. So like when you're looking through, it doesn't seem like it would theme to the fold. And to be honest with you, I'm not about to spend, you know, $5-10 on a theme just to find out if it would adjust to the fold. So that's just something I noticed. I don't really use themes. Maybe somebody who is an Android user, if you have a fold, you know, in the comments, please throw down there. Let me know if it does adjust. That'd be kind of cool. I would expect it to not adjust because Apple's obviously very well-rounded into like, if you pick a stock color, theme, display, whatever, it will work on every single phone that it is on. But I feel like Android's not quite that level because of the customizations they allow. Obviously, I bet a lot of these themes are user-made. So anyway, that was another thing that was kind of meh. I don't think, and I mentioned this earlier, I don't think, so like you can technically fold the phone like slightly and use it as like a little propped up screen thing. I don't like that. I think that's terrible. I initially was like, oh, that's so cool. But like when you're like here, right? The point where it can self-lock is like not till like here-ish, and you can tell I have a case on here too, but like even without the case, like the point that it self-locks is like really iffy. And also I can't imagine any situation where like you bought a phone to get a big screen and then you're like, no, I want to use half the big screen. I want to use smaller than even just a normal phone screen. Like that's crazy. So yeah, using the phone like half folded up is not very great. There's a couple apps that can take advantage of it that were cool. Like if you're in cameras and you tap the camera button and then you like, if you have it like this, right? You just get a nice big, you know, screen. If you fold it at this point right here, it has this little menu, see your shots straight away. And it says any pictures or videos you take will just show up there. And it's so cool. Like right now you can kind of see, you know, this is kind of what it looks like. I'll see if I can get it. And then you fold it and it locks in, and you fold it and it locks in. Like it's kind of cool. And then if you like take a picture, it just shows up on the other side. So it's cool that that's an option. But I can't see myself ever wanting to be like taking a picture. Let me turn my phone and look at it, and then take a picture and turn my phone and look at it. Like it's not a benefit. It's just something different. So there's a couple apps like that. Like I mentioned earlier, YouTube, you can like fold it in half and then suddenly it's like, oh, this half is YouTube, the video, and this half is the pause and play. But it's like, you don't need an entire half of the screen for just pause and play. So there was a couple others that I think did that as well. Like Samsung seemed to have some pretty good support for the folding phone and some of the cool features it can do. But in almost every case that I used it in, it felt like folding it in half did no benefit to me and didn't make the experience any better. So that was something that was kind of meh for me. It just, you know, use the big screen. That's what it's there for. Let's see what else. One-handed use of the phone is basically not possible. So like right here, you can see I have a phone I have the Fold open with a case on it. It's got this big old bump. It's got a little, like a little stand thing here. This is so easy to hold with one hand, but I'm holding the screen. Like there's nothing to grab. Like I can grab this kinda, you know, but there's nothing to like hold on to without holding the screen. One-handed use, like you can barely type with, like I would never recommend typing with one hand on this screen. It's ridiculous. But then on top of that, just like even trying to like, you know, like reach something, like if I need to pause my show and need to reach the middle of the screen, like I can't do it. Like it's one-handed use is not an option with this. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's not an ideal experience to ever try to use this with one hand. It's just something that I think I wanted to mention is there's a slight touch difference on the inner screen versus the outer screen. So obviously the inner screen folds, the outer screen doesn't. The outer screen's made of glass, the inner screen's made of whatever the other glass is, the fake glass, this plastic that bends. But when I noticed this when I was on the treadmill, I was walking on the treadmill and I was watching Star Trek Discovery and I needed to pause the show. And the pause and play button was right in the middle of the fold. That's fine, that's whatever. It was like right in the middle of the crease. So I'd reach out to touch it, but it wouldn't register my touch. It would take a couple tries. Like I'd have to like, because obviously I'm moving, right? I'm on the treadmill, I'm bouncing. So I'd like trying to like very gently just tap the screen without like poking the whole phone. And it wouldn't register my touch sometimes. And I realized that it made me kind of notice that the inner screen, like if you get solid contact, like the whole finger pad, you know, with the inner screen, you get really good touch sensitivity and touch responsiveness, and it's totally fine. But if you're just like the tip of your finger, just, you know, very gently touching, it's not quite as responsive. Just like when I was working out, or, you know, something like that. Maybe when your hand's wet, I don't know. That was just something I noticed. It's not a big deal. It's why it's kind of more in meh things than dislikes, because it didn't really bother me, and I still love the inner screen, and I still use it like that all the time. But I just noticed, like, you know, when I'm using my phone, iPhone on the treadmill, I can just tap and it just takes it. But like on the Samsung phone, on the inner screen, not the outer screen, because I tested this on the outer screen, but on the inner screen, sometimes the screen wouldn't register touch when I was walking, when I was trying to gently touch the screen. So just something I noticed. Outside of that, I don't think there's anything else that I really was meh about it. Like everything else on the phone, I think I really enjoyed. I think it's just, I don't know, that navigation thing really bothered me. Having to like adjust it, but then like when I'm using Paramount Plus, like having those icons still show at the bottom, the app tray or whatever, that was annoying. So there's some things that are kind of meh, but overall, I mean, I'm like, it's a folding phone, like it's so cool. Like I can't get over it. So it's just, I don't know, there's just a couple things that are kind of meh about it that I wanted to mention for you guys. All right, for this last section of the video, I'm going to cover things I missed from iOS when I was using the Fold, and then things I'll miss from the Fold because I am not going to switch to it. So first, things I missed from iOS. The Apple TV app is so good. Android needs something else like that. Maybe they have it. If they have it, please post in the comments, because I'm not like a super huge Android user. But on the Apple TV app, right, you can search for any show. Like this isn't like Apple TV Plus. I'm not talking about their subscription. I'm talking about the TV app on the iPhone, where if you buy something, that's where it shows up. You can search for any show in existence, even if Apple doesn't sell it, even if it just came out, whatever. As long as it is released one episode, you can search for it in the Apple TV app. And then there's a plus sign in the top right corner, and you tap it, it instantly adds to your watch list. When I go to the home screen on the Apple TV app and I click on it on my Apple TV, on my MacBook, on my iPad, on my iPhone, anywhere, when I click on the video, it'll instantly show me. If I scroll down, I can see right there, this is available on Hulu and Amazon, and you can purchase it from Apple for $20, whatever the season costs, and this. You can do it with TV shows, you can do it with movies. It is the freaking best feature on Apple right now. The ability to just like, because obviously there's like 1,000 streaming platforms and they're all freaking annoying and they all cost money, so nobody wants to pay for all of them, right? Like I have Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and Paramount Plus and Apple TV Plus, like I get it, there's a lot of them. But the fact that I can like search for any show I want to watch, add it to my list view, or just like from the page where you're looking at it, scroll down and see every platform that I can watch it on, that is amazing. That is the thing I missed most about this, is because I use that to watch my shows. Like I want to see what episode I'm on Discovery. Oh yeah, I don't have Apple TV Plus on my Fold. Like I gotta go on my phone or go to Paramount Plus and look there. But like on the Apple TV, it's just so easy, and it syncs from my phone to my TV to my Mac to my iPad and back to my phone. Like it's phenomenal. I miss that so much using the Fold. Like I could watch Discovery, I couldn't watch Netflix, that didn't work. But I missed that a lot. That was something that really was a bummer to not have. Another thing for me, this is like a game-breaking feature, or like the best feature on iPhone, I think, besides Apple TV, I was just mentioning. From an iPhone home screen, if you swipe down, like if you touch the middle of the screen and you pull down, you get a global search. It is just a blanket search. You can search for a word and it'll find that word in any photos that contains that word, any contexts that have that word in it, any apps that have that name in it, your notes that have that word in it. You can like Google search it from there. It's literally just like a one-stop shop for like, find this thing on my iPhone. Like I can search for the word dog on my phone, right? And it'll literally pull up pictures of dogs from my photos. Or I can tap the Google this button and it just searches for it. Like it's all in one thing right there. And I use it 24/7 because like, I'm one of those guys, I got like 300 apps on my phone, right? And I'm using most of them. But sometimes I don't wanna have them all on the main page. And I don't want to have to like search around for them. So a lot of times I just swipe down, because as soon as you swipe down, it also opens the keyboard for you to do the global search. So like I can find any app on my phone in less than a half a second. And I naturally do this on anybody else's phone because everybody arranges their phone different. So if my mom's like, hey, I need your help, can you do this? And I need to get to settings, I don't care where settings is on her phone. I'm not going to look around to find it. I'm just going to swipe down, type set, and click on settings because it's right there at the top of the page. So I missed having that global search on iPhone. Samsung doesn't have that. And when you swipe down, instead of getting a global search, it just opens Notification Center. And that was really annoying. So I just took some getting used to because I use that constantly on my iPhone 14 Pro Max. So if there's a feature like that on Android, let me know because I couldn't find it when I was looking, and that was something that was like, I need that. Like that is a huge thing for me. And I know if you want to get crazy on customizations, there's probably some theme or whatever they're called to like totally rechange it, to switch from Samsung UI to something else. But I'm talking about kind of more of the stock experience of using a Fold, and I don't want to switch to something else that might not be as compatible with the folding aspect of this phone. So just from the base version of a Samsung Fold 5 that you get, the Z Fold 5, I wish it had that feature. Another thing I missed from iOS that's really huge for me is HomeKit. I'm a smart home guy. I have a HomePod, there it is. Yeah, I have a HomePod there. I got HomePods over there. I got Apple TV. You know, I got all my lights in my basement are hooked up to HomeKit. Like, I have my doorbell hooked up to HomeKit. I have video cameras for the kids' rooms, like when they're taking naps to make sure they don't wake up and aren't like freaking out, like whatever. Like our entire house is a smart home. My garage, I literally have a Raspberry Pi right here running HomeBridge so I can connect non-HomeKit devices to my HomeKit setup. Like I'm big in the smart home space. I love it. It's so cool to me. And not having any of that on the Fold was a bummer. And I know that Samsung, like Google has their Google Home stuff, and Samsung, I think, has they have Bixby, whatever, but obviously I couldn't access my Apple smart home stuff from my Samsung phone. And also I would never switch from the HomePod. I used to use Alexas, right? Like Alexa used to be my thing. I sold every Alexa I had, my Alexa subwoofer, my Echoes, the Echo speakers I had, everything, the Amazon Fires I had. When they released that Sidewalk thing, I did not like Sidewalk. I think that's a huge privacy thing. I don't love it. I was like, nope. And I sold everything I had of Amazon and I switched to Apple's like HomePods and stuff. And it was the best switch I ever made for one reason. The HomePods recognize the person's voice that's speaking and does the action based on who is talking. So when I say, call my mom, it calls my mom. But when my wife says, call my mom, it calls her mom. That is a huge distinction because not only does it call her mom from her phone number using her iPhone that she can then switch to her watch or switch to her AirPod or switch to her phone from, but it also lets us have like segmented things where I can say, I can say something like, remind me to download something in 20 minutes, right? And then it'll remind me on my phone and my watch in 20 minutes, go download this thing. Not her, because my wife doesn't need to know it, but I need to know that. So having those features where I can separate out, what I'm looking for from what my wife wants or what my kids are using the speaker for is huge. And so not having HomeKit stuff was a real big bummer for me. I use HomeKit 24/7, 365. I love building automations and shortcuts. I have a whole security system that I designed from the ground up using shortcuts. I can't live without HomeKit. That's a huge thing for me. Another thing that I miss from iOS, the simplified gesture experience that's consistent across all the apps. So on iPhone, generally speaking, there's always a back button in the top left corner, but you can also swipe from left to right to leave the app. And on Android, some apps have a back button, some apps don't. Some pages have a back button and then another page doesn't. And then you have to know when to go up and touch a button or when to swipe up to hit the back button. And just, it was annoying to not ever know where to go between the two. It's a small inconvenience, but it's just, I like that about iPhone. It's just back, forward, back, jump. I never had to like think about where the back button was going to be on the next page. So that was just something I noticed. Another thing I missed from iOS, I don't like multiple apps on a phone. So the Fold, I have to read this off my notes because I can't even remember all these. The Fold shipped with Outlook from Microsoft and Gmail, so 2 email apps, and it switched with the Google Messenger app and the Samsung Messenger app, and it's shipped with the Internet, which is the Samsung app, and Chrome, which is the Google app, and Google, which is the Google app. And then it also had Gallery, the Samsung app, and Google Photos. Like, oh my gosh, I just bought this phone. Why does it have 4 of every type of app on it? I understand, like, okay, I get that people want customization, that's great, but like, why does a phone have to ship with 2 of everything by default on it? That's confusing. I'm sure it's something where Samsung agreed that Google could do that if they let them use their Android operating system. I'm sure it's something like that, but it's just annoying to me to not know which one to use. Like, a great example is like if I take a picture and I save it, like, is it going to go to Samsung Photos or is it going to go to Google Photos? Is it going to be uploaded to Google Photos? Is it going to be saved? Like, is it on device or is it in the cloud? Like, which one do I use? Does Google Photos not support, folding, features like the Samsung one does because it's a Samsung Fold running Google OS? I don't know. There was just a bunch of things where it was a cluttered, confusing experience knowing which app to use and why. And I never figured it out. Like, I know that there's multiple apps. I know which one's which. I know which one's owned by which company. I don't know which one I'd use. And I don't know why I'd use it over the other one. It seems like they're the exact same thing with just different colors made by different companies. So that was something I just didn't really like. And I like that iOS is just, this is the calendar app. This is the mail app. This is the messages app, and that's it. And I get some people want customization. I too wish that, Apple had some kind of like messenger thing where you could download multiple different apps to use as messengers. But I also like the security of, encrypted, iMessages all being stored in one app securely and not being able to be read. So there's definitely a trade-off there. My personal preference is one app that does it all pretty well and is much more secure. Another thing that I could not live without is going to be my Apple Watch Ultra. Apple Watches are just such a lifesaver, literally and figuratively. Like, I use mine like, do this, do that, open the garage, and there's Siri, because it's got the gesture thing. Like, it's, like text messages, like I'm like, okay, it's 96 degrees out. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not going outside until it's cooler. Like, the UV's 5, I'm going to burn because it's above a 2. Like, I use my Apple Watch for everything. So I don't think I could switch to the Samsung Fold only because I know that the Samsung watches are not to the same level as the Apple Watch yet, and especially not to the same level as the Apple Watch Ultra. Maybe they'll get there someday, but I just think right now, like, just the walkie-talkie feature, my wife and I use that constantly, everything about the Apple Watch and iPhone synchronization experience is something I would really miss if I were to switch to the Fold, and another reason why I definitely couldn't really switch. The thing I wanted to say too, the always-on display on the Samsung phone is not as good in my opinion. So iPhone created the always-on display, right, for the 14 Pro or the 14, series. And they're like, yeah, it's the first of its kind. It's like, nobody says like Android's had this for 10 years, like, whatever. I think always-on displays are really cool. I don't think they're super useful because there's not a lot of data on there. But like, if you look at like the always-on display on this one, right? So like this one, and it's going to be bright so you can actually see it. But you can kind of see like there's just a couple little apps there, and call and picture. Like there's not a whole lot really on that. But on the iPhone, the always-on display like literally shows me the notification. Like I can't read the text from it, but I can see you have a reminder, messages, Facebook Messenger, like whatever it is, they're all just right there. Like it's really nice to be able to have that. And then I have my, set up with widgets and stuff at the top so I can see the battery life of my watch, the current weather outside, like the temperature, the UV index. There's something else I can't remember that's set there. I think it's calendar or something. But I have these widgets set up there, and it's just it's a better experience, and it's significantly brighter And maybe that's why I know a lot of people don't really love the always on display on the iPhone. I love it. I use it all the time. And it's also significantly brighter than this. Like you can see this one always on display is pretty dark. Like well, now it's off. It was on. It's pretty dark compared to the iPhone. The iPhone is significantly brighter for the always on display, which I think makes it more useful. The last thing that I wanted to mention, I tried going through my normal uses of an iPhone and then using the Samsung and trying to see like, what are the things what I miss? And I couldn't find anything else. This was it. This was seriously like, these phones now are at the point where they're so close that they're kind of at the point where it's just whatever the hardware can do is like the benefit of the phone, right? Like they both take great pictures. They both have great screens. Like even though this folding thing is really cool, like that's a hardware feature, not a screen quality feature. You know, they both have incredible screens. iPhone's got the, I think it's OLED now or whatever, I don't know, something on there. Like it's a really great screen. 120 Hertz at the very least, like they both have that. Like these phones are basically at the point where like the software and everything is so good now that anything the iPhone can do, you can theoretically customize Android to do. And then, you know, it just basically comes down to hardware. I think Apple's iPhone chips are better. I think they're like, they have every single iPhone's had a smaller battery than any other Android device for the last like 5, 7 years, 10 years, whatever. And yet their battery life is still usually better. And I think it's because their custom processors sip battery, you know, less. I think it's just a better overall chip, but yeah, I think these phones are basically the same now, and it just comes down to the hardware between them, and whether you like, you know, the more simplified experience of maybe an iPhone where there's less customization, but it's much simpler to use overall, and has some features that are really beneficial versus the customization and being able to like do whatever you want, but have it be a lot more complicated too. So that was just something I was going to say. It was like outside of the things I just mentioned, there wasn't really a whole lot else that I really missed from my iPhone, you know, using the Fold. Granted, I can't switch to the Fold. I can't miss HomeKit. I can't miss the Apple TV app, and I can't miss my Apple Watch. But Samsung makes a smartwatch, and if it's, you know, if you'd like that, that's great. You know, maybe that'll be the thing that keeps you on your Fold. I don't know. It just, you know, that's a couple things that I would miss from iOS. So I just wanted to mention that. The last thing was just things I'll miss from the Fold, and there was pretty much just well, three things. Three things. One, I loved the keyboard. Keyboard was a great experience. I'm hoping the iPhone keyboard gets a big improvement on iOS 17 coming out in a couple weeks. But the keyboard on the Fold was just phenomenal. Not only the typing experience and the vibration and everything, which I know iPhone has that now, but it's not at the same level, but also just the ability to like touch and hold on a word and then highlights it, and then you just delete or just start typing to replace it. Like stuff like that was just really nice. So the keyboard's something I'm really gonna miss. Especially like the copy paste, being able to see clipboard history. Like I wish iPhone had a clipboard history. That would be huge. Another thing I'll miss from the Fold is going to be the inner screen. You can tell this entire video if you've been watching or listening that I click it closed and open like constantly, because it is just addicting as heck. This thing is so cool. Like, oh my gosh, the folding phone, it folds, it's got a folding screen. Like what is happening in life? It's so cool. I'm going to miss the folding screen. I'm going to miss the big screen. You know, I'm going to miss being able to use it on the treadmill and use it like just like, oh, you know, I'm bored. I want to watch a show. Boom, I got this giant like iPad mini size screen I can watch a show on. It's going to be great. And I'm going to miss that. So, and then just the last thing was just the picture customization. That's just a small one. But like I said earlier, iPhone's limited to small and large, and there's no medium. And I loved on the Fold being able to be like, show me everything and zoom it into max picture-in-picture size, or make it just really, really small. So yeah, those are the things I'm definitely going to miss from the Fold. So to round everything up for my review, you know, obviously there was a lot of things that I loved about the Fold and a couple things I really didn't like about the Fold, and obviously some more meh things as well. But I think it comes down to a couple things. Mainly, if you're an Apple smart home user or you use the Apple Watch, like switching to the Samsung phone is not going to be probably the best thing for you. You know, I think the Apple Watch does not really compare well to the Samsung watches yet in terms of features and options that it can do. It will get there, I'm sure, someday, just like the phones did. But I think right now the Apple Watch is a better experience. I think for iPhone users, if you switch to an Android phone and you want to replace your watch, I think your experience is not going to be quite as good. But that's just my 2 cents. Either way, though, I think the Fold is an incredible piece of tech. I don't think there's anything out there that can really beat it in terms of hardware. In my personal opinion, while I know the Google Pixel Fold or whatever it's called has a bigger outer screen, and a lot of people like the bigger outer screen compared to this narrow one, which I totally get because this is way too narrow. The inner screen size on the Samsung Fold, the Z Fold 5, is just perfect. I would not change a thing about the screen on the inside. I would not make it bigger. I would not make it smaller. I think it is perfect the way it is. So that's my 2 cents on that. I just think it's a great phone. I think any Android person would be incredibly happy with this. I know Samsung Fold, usually they have a lot of good deals on like trade-ins and stuff. So if you guys are interested, definitely look at, doing some trade-ins and see if you can like hopefully pay off a good chunk of the phone. I think for me, I'm gonna stick with my 14 Pro Max and see what the 15 Pro Max Ultra or whatever the heck the new iPhone's gonna look like in a couple weeks. But for me, yeah, I'm gonna probably stick with iPhone for a while. There's just too many things in the iOS ecosystem that are just perfect that have not been replicated on Google to the point where you would be able to switch over. Obviously Apple Music, I don't really care about Apple Music. I'm more of a Spotify guy. I love the music recommendations every week, like New Music Friday or whatever the one's called, Discovery Weekly. Oh, Release Radar, that's the one I love. Like Release Radar, I cannot live without. I've tried it, I cannot live without it. I've tried Apple Music for a month straight and just could not make the switch. But some of Apple's other apps and things have just killed it. Apple TV, that app is amazing. The synchronization between the Apple TV that we have hooked up over there, and then like the HomePod, being able to use HomePods as speakers for it, the AirPlay options and the HomeKit thing that we have set up here, my Apple Watch Ultra. There's just so many reasons that I would never be able to switch fully to a folding phone from Samsung, unfortunately, because gosh, this phone is cool. So anyway, hopefully you guys liked the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys did like the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe, follow for more content. Check out some of my other videos that I've been putting out. I put one out on the Steam Deck recently. I think you guys will find kind of interesting. So definitely go ahead and check those out. Throw some comments below. I usually try to respond to all the comments. If you guys have anything you want to tell me about your experience with a folding phone or iPhone, or something you like or dislike about the iPhone versus Android, please throw those down there. I love to see your guys' comments and see what you guys think of everything. So thank you so much, guys. I'll see you around.